And State of Origin 2 was held last night, as you heard in Jim's Sports News. For sports fans, if you've just joined us, it ended up with New South Wales levelling up the best-of-3 series. But a lot of the online chat about the event was not about the actual game. It was about the terrible behaviour of the crowd during a minute's silence, supposed to be a minute's silence, a tribute to an Australian legend. Our Australian correspondent, Jason Morrison, joins me now. Jason, morning to you.
G'day. Tony's clearing out his desk. All the best, mate. You did well on the show, and it's been good having you on the last 6 weeks.
He's been great. He has been great, actually, and he'll find something else just like that. Jason, this is actually embarrassing. These are your countrymen, They couldn't sit quietly for 1 minute.
Yeah, look, 90,000 people in the MCG, you're going to have, well, 10% of them are going to be half cut by the time the minute silence comes around, and we're surprised this happens. So I can't make an excuse for it because it's appalling. The man that they were celebrating the life of is the man who made the MCG the famous cauldron it was, essentially because of these memorable images of the lighting of the Olympic cauldron back in 1956. It's a huge stretch for people who are half pissed to actually remember that might matter to a few people. So, of course, when you ask for a minute's silence with that many people at a footy game, what did you get? Queenslander. It's just... Oh, look, I saw it. Apparently it was worse, Jason? At the ground.
There were jeers worse than Queenslander, weren't there?
Hang on, I wrote them down here. Gallons, a wanker. But I mean, we're good at those things because,
this
as you remember,
silence. It is extraordinary. Only in Australia.
Yes, it was worse at the ground. I mean, on television, at least they pulled the fader down, so it wasn't quite as profound. Yeah. But at the ground, apparently, what do you say? I feel sorry for the man's family.
Oh, God, of course you would. But to be honest, I mean, we're talking about Ron Clark, as we were saying. Would there have been a lot of people in the crowd that didn't even know who Ron Clark was?
Interesting you ask that, because I have a feeling that was the problem. He had died at around lunchtime that day. It probably would not have even been on the mind of most of the people who were at the ground, and it was an ambitious thing and a decent thing for the rugby league to do. They just forgot that when the sponsors a beer on both sides of the team's jerseys, and most of the people who flew down there came down for a night or two away for the wife, you can imagine how the reality of the crowd was.
It was a bit unwise, but obviously heart's in the right place. Just bit them on the bottom. New Zealand's traveller tax. I mean, this was in our last budget, of course. It's a tax an extra $22 to the price of visiting New Zealand, and we were reasonably happy with it here in New Zealand. But in Australia, you've got the PIP.
No, we haven't. No, I don't care. Look, I looked it up. I could be on a flight in about an hour's time. I could come and have lunch with you. Yep. And it cost me $199 to get there. And say that price went to $220. Do you really think people are going to... It costs you to park at Sydney Airport, for example, around about $100 a day. Let's put everything into context here. So most people who go to the airport will spend more on getting to the airport than they will flying to the destination.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I don't think it's a problem, and I think this is just someone whipping up for the sake of it. The tourism industry hates it because they have to collect the money. So, if there was a counter there that said, pay you $26 before you come into New Zealand, Australians would talk about it. But when it's in the ticket price, it's just annoying, and it's just a classic add-on that goes on to the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's face it, it pales compared to the add-on in Australia anyway. What is it, the passenger movement? $55.
About double it. Yeah.
Okay, I love this. This Queensland 17-year-old, what's her name, Caitlin Argyle. She's got a great way of getting into the housing market.
Smart kid, although the sums aren't getting there for me at the moment. She wants to borrow about $500,000 to buy a property on the Gold Coast, the tourism hotspot of Australia. And she can get her parents to give her the guarantee to get the loan, but she needs to raise the deposit. So her novel idea is essentially to crowdsource it by saying, buy a week's rent off me ahead, and you can stay on holiday on the Gold Coast, but give me the money now and I'll get my 50 grand for my deposit, and everyone's happy. This is the country, remember, that gave you Alan Bond and Christopher Skase. So I sat down and I thought, I wonder if she's going to hit strife, because at the moment, if you borrow money and rent a place out, you actually end up in front because interest rates are low.
Yep.
When interest rates climb, as they inevitably will, her maths are out the door. So I say with some reservation, as much as it's a brilliant idea, it works on the assumption that nothing's going to change. Things are going to change here.
Yeah.
So
it
good
also
luck
works
to
on
her.
the assumption
I admire
that it also works on the assumption that she's going to end up having a house and not having to refund money because it isn't going to go ahead and these people have paid for a week's accommodation. But anyway,
Yes.
I think it's a novel idea. Good for her.
It's a lovely story, and if you go and Google her, you'll find she's done little videos, and the ambition is great, and you can't knock that down.
Absolutely.
You've just got to be worried about the maths.
Jason, thank you so much for joining us. Jason Morrison, Australian correspondent. But I mean, as Jason said, there have been a lot of very famous Australians in the past who didn't worry enough about the maths.